Hey, what's up, guys? It's Monday. It's the HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith. It's a podcast about history, politics, and race from a pop culture's perspective. You know, we tell the truth. If it offends you, we're sorry, not sorry is the slogan. It's not pro any color, it's pro truth. Don't forget to subscribe like always. All of our listeners on Spotify and Google Play and all that. Still waiting on iTunes. They need to catch up. And YouTube as well. Thanks for watching and listening. Email us at rptalktruth@gmail.com. I'm a filmmaker from Trinidad and Tobago. Traveled a lot. I've been a lot of places around the world. Chris is a veteran of the Army Reserves that works for the VA, and he has a passion for history and politics as well. We both do. That's why we started this podcast. We thought it was great information we could share.
Yes.
Friends, family, those around the world, and kids as well in middle school, high school, college. Just want to bring some truth to a lot of subjects that people don't talk about.
Exactly.
We're going to be raw and uncut and just tell the truth. But again, it's some of it will be our opinion based on subjects, but we're coming from a factual standpoint only. I always like to say that. And today, I think Chris is going to get it going, and we're going to talk about Juneteenth. And it's funny he brought this up. And we may, depending on the time, guys, if we still have time and stuff, we may segue into another topic today. But it's funny, before Chris gets started, I want to say that he mentioned Juneteenth because it's something that I had actually heard about, Chris. But you know what I'm saying? You know how you hear about something,
yeah,
but no one else really talks about it. Never saw it on the news or anything. So even though I'd kind of loosely heard this term before Juneteenth, I never heard, I never knew what it was until you brought it up as a topic for us to discuss on the podcast. And one of the great things about doing a podcast like this is, as the podcasters, we can learn new things and be enlightened by our own information that we're learning that we plan to share with the rest of the world. So I'm definitely excited to talk about Juneteenth. Like I was telling you before the show, I may not have much to say, but based on what I've read, once you told me the topic, I think I could add a few things. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. So let's talk about it. It's funny. Earlier today, I was talking to my mom. I said, "Mom, have you heard of Juneteenth?" She said, "Nope. What's that?" I know you said, "Well, she's from Trinidad, but you know, she's been here. I mean, most of her life. You know, well, not most, but a lot of her life. But she was like, "No, I never heard of it."
Yeah.
Anyway,
I just think it's, you know, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago area, I've heard of Juneteenth. It's been, it's talked about, but not talked about. It's mentioned. I should say it's mentioned, but not talked about. So for years, I've heard people talk about Juneteenth, and I was like, "What is it?" And one day, my dad was like, "Oh, are you celebrating Juneteenth?" And I was like, "Dad, why? What is it?" And he said, "It is the celebration of slavery for blacks." And I was like, "Huh?"
Celebration of the emancipation of slavery.
Well, I mean, yes, for the free. I mean, I'm sorry. It's the celebration of the ending of slavery for black people.
Right.
Or for, so let me just go straight into the, the historical part of it. Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States. Dating back to 1865, it was on June 19th that the Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, landed at Galveston, Texas, with news that the war had ended and that the enslaved were now free. Please note that the time that this happened, which was 1865, that's 2.5 years after President Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation. So, which became official January 1st, 1863. So it was 1865. So 2.5 years later. The Emancipation Proclamation had little impact on the Texans due to the minimal number of Union troops to enforce the new executive orders. So they didn't have enough troops to make them stop and let the slaves free. So when General Lee surrendered in April of 1865 in the arrival of General Granger's regiment, the forces were finally strong enough to influence and overcome the resistance. So, there's a lot of statements that could be made about why it took 2.5 years later. Was it because people just ignored it? Were they like,
you mean the ending? What Abraham Lincoln had done?
Yeah, from 1863 to 1865.
Yeah,
because like that meant that they still had forced labor for those 2.5 years.
Right.
So they were able to, maybe they were trying to get more cotton for that time. Maybe the news didn't make it. Whoever was coming got killed.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. But just to read the order, it said the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and free labor. Okay. So, and then the reaction for the news, it ranged from shock to immediate jubilation. Mm-hmm. Some slaves it didn't even take time for them to finish making their statements. They were gone.
Wow.
They went up north. A lot of people migrated north. Some others stayed around, but then they moved to places like Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma.
Which had already been abolished 2 years before.
Correct. Went to the neighboring states and where it was already free. So,
and I heard a lot of slaves went up north to the places like Chicago and New York and
Chicago, New York,
and we'll actually talk about that on an episode too. The whole migration of Chicago after slavery. I read a whole thing about that a while back. But go ahead. Yeah.
And then that's pretty much the biggest thing is that it was the celebration of ending of slavery.
Right.
But then some little things. So if you have places and they do festivals, rodeos, fishing, barbecue, baseball are some of the typical activities that are done for Juneteenth. Certain foods, you got strawberry soda pop. Mm-hmm. That's very country.
They call it red soda pop when I was reading. Yeah. Now I know it's strawberry. I don't know what they were talking about when they said red.
And so then dress, your attire was an important element in early Juneteenth customs, and is often still taken seriously, particularly by the direct descendants who can make the connection to the their tradition roots. So a lot of people, slaves, took their the garments that they were given when they were slaves, and they threw the stuff away, and then they went and were able to get the clothing that was by their former masters, and then they took that on and dressed themselves, so they were looking better. So Juneteenth again is a day to not only embrace it, but then to look your best.
Right. Right. And if I could chime in real quick, I was reading what I think is interesting about the whole Juneteenth thing. One of the things I wanted to bring up about it was I think that it's interesting that for some reason this celebration derived from the free slaves in Texas, and it didn't happen in the South. You know what I mean? In the southern states. Now in Texas, I read there were 250,000 slaves. When the guy you mentioned came to Galveston, Texas, and did that
freedom
and stuff. And I just think it's interesting that this celebration, for some reason, came out of that core slave group that was in Texas.
Well, I think it's because it's the last location that they were able to.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but for some reason, why couldn't they have done that in Louisiana or Florida when they were free, or Virginia or the Carolinas?
Because not all slaves were free.
You know what I mean?
But not all slaves were free.
But weren't they? No, I know not all.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm saying, but back then, 2 years before, they could have started Juneteenth too.
No. The point about it, which is what the history I'm trying to understand bring about it, is this is when everyone considers all slavery was definitely ended at this point, because that was the last bit that needed to be cleared out or emancipated. So you couldn't start it sooner, because how you're celebrating Juneteenth and whatever.
When the state was still intact. I understand what you're saying, but back then they didn't have TVs and radio and all. So how did they know? That's the standpoint that I was coming from.
Oh, I'm just going.
You know what I mean? Like how did they know that Texas
historical
was still...
history? I mean, they
I'm saying
write that down.
In the time, how did they know that Texas wasn't freed yet? You know what I mean? I'm just posing the question. I don't know. I wasn't there.
I'm sure they knew. I'm sure people knew not to go to Texas, otherwise you might get rounded up and taken back. Okay. And put on a, that's the only thing I don't have that answer.
That's what I'm saying. That was my question. Not that because remember we're like talking from a standpoint of like communication.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking in my head as I pose this question, communication wasn't the same back then.
No.
They didn't even have a way of like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Well, okay, so this is why, like I sort of brought up the mention of saying no one knows why the delay happened. Was it we don't care? Like the Union soldiers was like, it's not, there wasn't enough Union soldiers to enforce it. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they, the general when he came in, he made the proclamation. I'm sure it was written in his.
And this general was from the North.
Yeah, and it was recorded that was the day that they were able to make that proclamation, right. and then that person was able to say all of Texas is free, which was the last location that we need to worry about. So all the slavery has officially ended.
Right, and even then when they. As I was reading, even then when they ended it and and it was June 19th, hence the term Juneteenth, guys. Even then when that happened, when the slaves in Texas decided, hey, we're going to make this a celebration and stuff like that, how did they let the rest of the nation know this is our celebration and it's Juneteenth? You know what I'm trying to say?
I think that passed on from years over time. Like people knew the dates, and so certain people knew the dates.
Right, and that could be why this holiday, which should be a real holiday, guys, got lost in the shuffle because of how it happened and how it was so many years later, and Texas was the last state. And back then, like you said, it probably took some time before news traveled back. Like, hey, we like make this a holiday. We celebrating the.
No, I don't think Juneteenth became. I don't think Juneteenth became a holiday the next following year for the slave. I think that was just over time that people, was able to look and say, oh yeah, this is the date that it officially ended because
in Texas
because everybody at that point had been freed and let go. But I think the reason why it's not as common and understood or the importance is just because it has to do with blacks. And we ourselves are not able, making it a national holiday. I mean, think about how long it took Martin Luther King Day to become holiday. Happened in our lifetime, and I remember when they made it official, certain states resisted. Arizona was the last one, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So
and it's funny. And I'll let you continue, but as I was reading too, I saw that even after the Civil Rights Movement, it actually kind of got lost in the shuffle again. Juneteenth, the holiday. But I'm sure you have the dates. But yeah, I was reading that earlier. I was like,
so here it says again in 1968. Well, okay, Civil Rights Movement of the 50s and 60s yielded positive and negative results for the Juneteenth celebration. While it pulled many of the African American youth away and into the struggle for racial equality, many linked their struggles to the historical struggles of their ancestors. So, basically, civil rights is being worked on or not enforced, but being changed. That everyone can be free or considered free, or Civil Rights Act could be passed and all that stuff, or everyone can be looked at equally. Mm-hmm. But it was not again it was in 1968 that Juneteenth received another strong resurgence through Poor People's March in Washington D.C. So but overall, my point is, it's a historical event. Some people may have heard of it, but you never knew what it exactly meant. And I just want to highlight.
I didn't even know what it exactly meant until we did the show. Yeah.
Well, even for me, again, I've heard of it, and it wasn't until my father mentioned, what it was, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. I mean, really, I didn't know it was a black thing, because when it was mentioned in Chicago, it's just mentioned. Mm-hmm. So you think, oh, it's something that everyone should know. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of, but in a way, I knew it was something black. But I didn't know exactly what.
Yeah, I knew it was something black, too. I just didn't know it was. And I just didn't know what it was. And, to me, guys out there that's listening, this should be celebrated the way spring break is celebrated. I just recently saw pictures of spring break in Miami and South Beach.
I put it as more like 4th of July.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the way blacks congregate and get together and celebrate spring break every year, man. I'm just using that as an example because I grew up in Miami and what I would see.
I mean, it's summer.
Yeah,
so me, why not get together?
To me, Juneteenth should be just like that. The same way people spend money to go out on spring break, all the brothers and sisters I see out in Miami and some of the other states and cities and stuff. I think the same thing should happen on June 19th every year. It should be a national holiday. We should all fly to some beach destination. It could even be Miami. And it should be positive. It should be no fights. And we should have conversations and panels about the historical effects of slavery and where we are now and how and why it was abolished. And it should be I think it should become a true celebration. And like reparations that everybody's talking about now and stuff like that, and the Electoral College and stuff, I think Juneteenth should be reintroduced to Congress, and it should be a holiday that's taken very seriously, especially something that's that important. Why aren't we celebrating every year when the slaves were emancipated? And why aren't we?
Biggest question, why isn't it in the history books?
Right, and why isn't it more in the history books?
And so that's my reason for wanting to bring this up and just present it.
Shed some light on it.
Shed light, and maybe a bigger discussion can be brought about, because again, Juneteenth is a very important date. A lot of people do celebrate it. I have heard of Juneteenth parties and stuff like that, but again, only certain locations. I mean, you go too far north and you just don't hear about it. It's not talked about. I've never.
Right, and I was reading when you brought it up before our show. I was doing some research and I was reading how first it was kind of celebrated, then not, then it came back, and I've read how it's just been up and down throughout history. You know what I mean? And to me, if Easter is important, and Christmas and Thanksgiving, which is a false holiday, which we'll cover on a podcast. I have it on my notes ready for us to cover Thanksgiving, the history of it. Why can't we celebrate something real like Juneteenth? And all the families get together once again.
It
and
should
cook and eat and talk about history and still go out and party or whatever.
Right. But it's not just a black true holiday, even though it is blacks who celebrate it. Like, everyone every American should be taking this in and going, yes, this is a good thing, because obviously slavery was wrong. So.
All the corporations let everybody off of work. All the corporations that are owned mostly by whites, they should let everybody off of work and everything. And they should acknowledge, respect it, and go, hey guys, it's Juneteenth. The day was about to go out and have a good time. Connect with your folks, eat. And I'm not even, like you say, Crispy, it shouldn't even just be a black thing. Maybe people can, maybe if you have white friends, they can come over to and celebrate that history. We're all a part of that history.
It's all history. It's a positive thing.
It's all about history.
It's a very positive. I mean, so many people go or mention the Emancipation Proclamation. So why not? Let's actually celebrate the end of slavery. And again, it truly makes blacks feel like they're part of the nation, that we have purpose, or we're respected. All those things. It's when you eliminate someone's history or just ignore or overlook it. Again, you may ask, why is someone doing something negative? Why are people stuck in the ghetto? Because you don't have that positive reinforcement of seeing or celebrating positive things that relate to you. Right. And again, we do a lot of stuff, or we do a lot of celebrating of culture or things like St. Patrick's Day was not that far, was recent.
That's what I'm saying.
So why not?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying dress up in blackface though.
Right. Oh no, we ain't saying that.
But I'm definitely saying,
you out there dressed in blackface, we might have to. No, I'm just kidding. But
and we're not dressing up as slaves either. We are just celebrating the end of it, and you just go out and you just have a good time, just like you would. And there should be fireworks and everything, just like 4th of July.
The same way everyone celebrates Cinco de Mayo and all that, and go and party and all that, and we're not Latin. I think it's the same way that every culture out there, every race should celebrate that, because we all coexist in these United States, and we should acknowledge and respect the emancipation of slavery and celebrate. And I think all races should join us in that celebration, and there should be some respect taken to that. I think that's extremely, extremely, extremely important. And why haven't I heard of this until now? That's what I'm still kind of shocked and taken aback by.
Yeah.
Again, I had heard of I've heard that name and that word before, but I never really knew what it was.
And and unfortunately, I just really looked into it after all these years, and I feel ashamed of myself. Like, I should have known that. And even on top of it, like I want to be not upset with my parents or anything for not telling me, but it's more like, damn, I wish I knew.
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean, and of course, coming from Trinidad, we have a different history. The way slavery ended and stuff like that. So we never had Juneteenth. So I didn't know, guys. You know what I mean? I came here as an immigrant from Trinidad, as we didn't have Juneteenth and stuff like that. But I still should be able to celebrate my brothers that are and sisters that are in the United States that went through that and slavery was abolished.
Exactly.
And it should be something that everybody is happy and a part of to actually celebrate. I also wanted to say, just like how negative the word nigger is that we talked about last week, guys, and I'll show if you have it, check that episode out. Juneteenth, I think, wasn't paid attention to because it's something positive.
You're not supposed to use that word anymore.
Yeah, no, I said that in the last. I wouldn't use it, but I'm using it in the context of explaining something. Chris is being funny, but yeah, just like the N-word we talked about last week being negative and was kept in the lexicon within the culture, I think Juneteenth was kept out of something positive.
There's a lot of stuff that's obviously been kept out of history,
because it's
pertaining to blacks. But isn't that very interesting how the positive stuff is kept out of history, but the negative things are always kept and pushed in. And, like you got blackface, you got blackface, and yet you don't hear the positive of anything dealing with black people. It's always just kind of a negative. They're living in the ghetto.
Yeah, you know what? I have a challenge for you guys. Take out the N-word, bring in Juneteenth.
There you go. There you go.
Stop using the N-word, and let's do a petition to send to your congressmen and senators to make Juneteenth a national holiday that's celebrated by everyone, and everyone gets a day off, because that is a day that we should celebrate when slavery was abolished.
And if not, how day offs is a lot to ask for sometimes. I think it should happen. But however, wait. No, they don't do it for everything. So anyway, Easter, no. But anyway, my
Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah, it took forever though. Remember?
It took forever.
So my point. All my point is put it on the calendar.
Yeah,
it's not even on the calendar.
But I'm taking it further.
It needs to be
as important as Juneteenth. There should be a day off.
I'm saying start with at least putting it on the calendar so everyone goes.
Start somewhere.
And then as it's being taught and explained more and more, then someone. I mean, obviously, it really should be a holiday. That's all.
See, Chris is nice. He wants to slow walk it. I say go all the way in. On the calendar, day off. Matter of fact, make it a paid day off. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all owe us anyway. Listen to our episode about reparations. You owe us anyway. So make Juneteenth a paid day off for everybody. That's what I say. And put it on the calendar. You know what I'm saying? We ain't slow walking nothing. With today's technology and who we are and what we are and the power that we have as a people, put it on the calendar, goddammit. That's what I say. Make it a national holiday right now. You know? And you guys could look this stuff up on Juneteenth. It came out of Texas, right?
Came out of Texas.
People into slaves in Texas started it, and then they spread it. Then they went out and spread it.
No. It's what I mean by starting Texas. That's when the last.
That's the last state. I know.
So,
but those states over
time, so, people know the history of, or found the history of when slavery ended, and then they decided the name was Juneteenth. So I'm not, because as you're saying to me like, oh, those slaves knew No, that I'm sure they didn't know June 19th was the day they were freed. Exactly, because.
Oh, maybe I read wrong, but according to what I read, it was June 19th. And then they decided to make a celebration out of it.
But I don't think it happened the next year.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm saying. I'm saying over time, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, let's make that day we were emancipated.
So I'm not sure the exact day that it was recognized, or Juneteenth was recognized as being Juneteenth. I got the history of when it started, blah, blah, but let's make it a historical holiday, and that's it. Anything you want to talk about?
Right. No. I was just Thanks for the clarification. I don't know when it was decided. Like I said, I read about it when you brought this topic up, and either way, it was June 19th when Texas was freed. And again, to end it, it needs to be a damn holiday.
Yes.
It needs to be a holiday right now. It needs to be acknowledged and respected by all races. Same way you guys do Christmas, Easter.
I'm
New
saying
Year's,
more like Cinco de
Memorial
Mayo.
Day,
We do
Cinco de Mayo.
Patrick's Day.
Independence Day, the day America gained independence.
That's why I agree with. Yes, because the independence of a whole group of people who were oppressed. Yeah, I think there should be a celebration.
Yeah, you guys barbecue.
There should be a day off.
June 19th, and then hit it again. Fire the grills back up July 4th.
Think about it, people. Another day off. Who's complaining? Why complain about a day off? So
it's a few weeks later. Fire the grills back up. A few weeks later.
I could use a holiday in June.
You know what I mean? Celebrate when we were free, then celebrate when America was free.
Exactly. Perfect.
It's perfect. Yep. Anyway, guys, that's our show, right? Everything else you want to say?
No,
so that's it. Anyway, guys, that's our show. It's the HPR Chronicles. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Email us at rptalktruth@gmail.com. Don't forget about our $100 subscriber giveaway. When we subscribe, and email us your YouTube name handle at rptalktruth@gmail.com. And when we get to 1,000, we're gonna shuffle those names up on the show.
You could win.
Send that $100 to one of you guys for. It's just a little incentive for you guys to subscribe. And again, only subscribe if you like what we're doing. Don't subscribe, then win the money, then unsubscribe. Look around ICT Group Digital. If you like what we're doing, if you like this podcast, Romantic Propaganda, any of the other stuff we have on the platform, if you like it and you think it's something you're interested in, subscribe, email us your name, and we'll put your name in the hat to win that $100. That's our way of just saying thank you for thinking of us. And it's the HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith. Did I forget anything?
No. You got it.
I said everything, right?
Yeah. I just again subscribe. We love some feedback. If you have any questions or topics you want us to, bring up, we will definitely do it. So
and I mean to answer all the comments. I can't get to all of them all the time, guys, because I'm really busy. But I will get to a lot of the comments that you guys say on YouTube and on the other streaming platforms and stuff. I will get to them, I promise. I just wanted to say that as well, too. That's it. It's the HPR Chronicle, guys. History, politics, race from a pop culture perspective. It's Shakur and Smith. Peace.